Hey worship team, I thought I'd send you a little video message rather than sending an email out just for a change. This is really for those that weren't able to make the meal that we had on Monday evening, which by the way was really good and you missed out. But don't worry, there'll be another one soon. I wanted to share with you just a little thought that I shared on Monday evening with the rest of the team. And there's a phrase in Romans that has just jumped out to me recently. It's Romans 12 and verses 10 to 11. Paul writes, "Be devoted to one another in love. Honour one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervour, serving the Lord." It was that phrase, keep your spiritual fervour, keep your spiritual passion, keep that fire raging within. Nick and I went on a conference towards the end of last year in Wales run by Falder Brennan, and it was a great little time just seeking the Lord together. We did notice though that we did bring the average age of those at the conference down by quite a lot. Nick and I are in our mid-40s and we brought the average age down by quite a good number. I noticed that the congregation were a bit on the elderly side, which is fine, and the song worship times, well, the songs were quite modern in choice and the music was actually quite loud, but I didn't see people complaining. I saw the whole place filled with people who were passionately worshipping God. Their spiritual fervour, their spiritual passion was at a really good place. And I thought to myself, wow, I really hope that my heart for worshipping God, will be like that when I'm their age. And then I thought to myself, I wish it was a bit like that now actually. I wonder how often we allow ourselves to just go through the routine of living our lives for God. Our lives are lived as an act of worship to God. But do we sometimes feel a bit like we're just going through the motions of that? Or maybe when we're leading worship on a Sunday morning or a Sunday evening, are we tempted to feel like we're just going through the routine of something we do week after week, just in the vain hope that God might bless us or turn up and do something? You know, there is a call for us to be faithful in serving in dry or difficult seasons, but they should just be seasons. Paul writes that we are to help each other to keep spiritually alive, passionate and on fire for God. So how do we do that? At the conference that Nick and I attended, they were sharing story after story of what they'd seen God doing in their lives. Some really big, exciting things, some really small things, but significant because God was in the detail. I wonder if we could share stories a bit more often with each other. It reminded me of the woman who poured the expensive perfume over Jesus' feet. The Pharisees were offended and wound up by this woman doing this. This perfume was way too expensive to be used in this way. But Jesus said, she loves much because she's been forgiven much. So we worship passionately when we see the living God do extraordinary things in our lives, and then we celebrate. So in this new year, in 2017, how can we encourage spiritual passion in each other? And we're recognising, of course, that in worship, really we're responding to God's goodness. It's not about achieving a greater passion in worship in its own, but it's in response to seeing God at work. We want to see God more clearly and walk ever closer to him. So what are there areas in our lives where we can just make a few little changes just to reignite some passion, to stoke that fire? Just some random ideas thrown out at you to think about this year. You could try changing the way you read your Bible. Maybe you don't read it every day. Maybe you could try a different translation of the Bible. Maybe you could look at reading the Bible in a year, or maybe listen to it more in the car. Maybe a change to your personal prayer life. Maybe forming a prayer triplet with some friends to look at how you can be accountable to each other in prayer. Maybe find a mentor this year, someone who's going to challenge you and stretch you on your walk with God. Maybe look at going on a retreat, maybe a solitary retreat, some time set aside to seek God in solitude and stillness. Maybe you want to get creative and start writing songs or poetry or or art or painting or sketching. Maybe look somewhere you wouldn't normally look for some godly inspiration, some godly input into your life. Maybe if you like things very sort of not too crazy and very predictable, maybe go to a slightly crazy conference. Or maybe if you love the crazy thing, maybe go to something that's a little bit more predictable and feels a bit safer, and be surprised at how God will speak to you. Look for podcasts from different churches, maybe read a new book. I'm reading a great book at the moment by Simon Ponsonby and Neil Bennett called Now Unto Him, which is a great read. Also, let's come to church ready to worship. Let's sort out the stuff that holds us back before we get to the building. Maybe there's stuff in your life that's holding you back to a greater degree, and maybe this is the year of breakthrough. This is the year of release. Maybe you need to pray with somebody. Maybe look at the Healing Prayer Centre at St John's, or maybe look at doing the Freedom Course, or some other way of just breaking the chains that hold you back. Maybe invite a friend to Alpha and be amazed at how God blesses and uses that. I'm sure you'll have plenty of other ideas as well of how you can keep yourself and how we can encourage each other in keeping spiritually on fire, spiritually passionate in our offering of worship to God. We're going to continue to aim to meet at least once a term as worship team, so please do your best to make those meetings. We need each other so much on this journey, and we need to encourage each other every step of the way. And we know, of course, that we're well placed and we're best placed to lead God's people in worship and to bring Him glory when we're in a place of unity together. And lastly, I wanted to say thank you so much for all you do in serving the church and blessing the Lord as part of the worship team. I get loads of encouraging comments from people of all ages in church, and I want to pass that on to you because it's our ministry together, and people are really grateful for what we do. They meet the Lord when we worship as community. So, be devoted to one another in love. Honour one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervour, serving the Lord.